I think the housing market affects everybody. I don't know how my kids are going to afford to be homeowners. We bought our house a long time ago and we have a really low interest rate, but it scares me to think about people that are on fixed incomes. And when you think about how when your property value increases, your property tax increases with it. And so, if someone's on a fixed income and their property tax raises astronomically and they're not where do you find that money? And then thinking about young people and just looking at interest rates, it's just terrifying. I mean, when our mortgage is at 2.75%, and now I think I looked it up before I came, and it's right around 7.5%. It's just really hard to wrap my head around as far as that's a really big leap. I think a lot of people have to get roommates, especially younger folks, because they can't afford to live, to pay their mortgage and pay all the bills without some assistance. I've seen a lot of people move to Idaho with out-of-state money, and so it's inflated our market tremendously. So you have people spending 50% of their income on housing, which is way too high. I think it's supposed to be like 30%. Stress of increased costs for just goods in general, and then you have childcare, which is holy cow. It's absolutely astronomical. It's well into, over $1,000 a month per kid for childcare. I think it's going to just add a lot more stress on marriages and families. So we're going to maybe have to consider going back to looking at, rather than, having your parents around as a nuisance, we might be able to go back to thinking like, wow, there's a lot of good that can come from having extended family or your mother-in-law or whatever it is, kind of live in home to help with costs or childcare or any of those types of things. Over 40% of college grads move back home. The average person is not on their own financially. They're dependent on their parents for some sort of financial help well into their late 20s. We need to think about how federal programs that we have that could assist families. I really think that one of the biggest ones would be having healthcare access. As far as that's a huge cost to people, and if we had more of a single payer model where we didn't have all those extra fees, healthcare could be more affordable to families, and thinking about having some programs for assistance with childcare, having some student loan forgiveness. If we know that younger people are financially stable, they're going to be healthier and happier, and that's better for all of us. I don't know how to make housing more affordable. I really don't. I know there's people that are experts in that way, but I think we need to have access to more low-cost housing. We need to have more subsidies for housing for sure. I think that there needs to be more of, when you're looking at who qualifies, it needs to be a more complex and robust look into people's finances. So it would be awesome if the state of Idaho gave some sort of a grant to Boise State to buy some housing for students and to build more housing that was more affordable, because with the way that costs have increased here, I know students are like at a crunch for like, where am I going to live? I can't afford to live in Boise proper, and we don't have public transport. So if you live far out, it's another thing of like transportation and all of those extra expenses. It's wild to me to look at the change in the costs of housing. And our house has tripled in value since we bought it 9 years ago. And when I look at that, I think we would never, ever be able to afford this house. So you used to be able to drive out a few miles outside of Boise and you would have access to low-cost housing. And when I look at the costs of those, when you're looking at, a lot of them are $400,000. I don't know how people pay $2,800 a month, and that doesn't include property tax and insurance and utilities and all the other things. Most people, elderly, retired folks, have a fixed income, and it doesn't adjust with inflation. And we know that people, when they were planning for retirement back 40, 50 years ago, were dependent upon Social Security. And Social Security, there's no way it's enough for people to keep up living with how expensive things are. So unless people were able to have pensions and 401ks and have those type access to finances, and also people are living so much longer than they did when they started thinking about retirement, and so people run out of money. It's kind of terrifying thinking about, we used to be like thinking about retirement age at 65, and now if you're living for another 30 years, how are you going to afford that? I think if you have a healthy relationship with your parents, I think it could be great. I think for everyone involved, it can go back and forth, and just kind of having that mutual dependency on each other can be a really beautiful thing, and I think can help a lot of families.